For the second time under Commissioner Manfred, Pete Rose, our fellow Red, is applying for reinstatement to the MLB. This time around, a little bit different than the first time. Now, personally, I've always been a believer that he should be in a Hall of Fame. When you look at what this guy's done from a player standpoint, he did never do anything, as far as I'm concerned, that altered his play of the game, that would alter the integrity of the game. He didn't go out there and bet that he wasn't going to hit the ball 4,000 sometimes. He didn't go out there, there was nothing of him betting on him losing, betting on himself losing, that would alter the integrity of the game. Granted, gambling was, an integrity of the game type of thing. Nothing bothered his performance, and for that reason, I always said, you look at some of the guys they talk about letting in baseball, letting at least be voted for, where you see the steroids did affect the performance, and now the Astros cheating did affect their performance, but Pete Rose remains banned. And now, though, it's different. And opinions aside from what any of us think and how much he should or shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, and let me just read this quote from Pete Rose's lawyer on this one. He says, and quote, "It has never been suggested, let alone established, that any of Mr. Rose's actions influence the outcome of any game or the performance of any player. Yet for the 31st year and counting, he continues to suffer a punishment vastly disproportionate to those who have done just that," close quote. And he's not wrong. And this is where things get particularly interesting, regardless of whether you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. That's not really up for debate at this point, because he came in here at the right time. Whether you think gambling was or wasn't the right thing for him to do to get, or when it comes to the integrity of the sport, it's very, very hard to ever argue the fact that the Astros cheating that actually affected the outcome of the game. It was proven to affect the outcomes of the games, knowing what pitches were coming. As Pete said, if I knew a pitch was coming every time before it came to the plate, I would have had 5,000, 6,000 hits in my career. He's not wrong, right? It does help when timing's everything in the sport. To say that them knowing when the pitches were coming, to say that cheating did not influence the outcome of that World Series would be crazy. And for you to go out there and, as baseball now, you look and say, well, okay, what happens if every single player in that team gets banned from baseball? What happens is every single one of them gets suspended from baseball? Maybe it's a different story, but they didn't. Every single one of them got let off the hook, minus the managers, and we'll say Carlos Beltran, because he lost his job over there as the Mets manager. Minus those three people, everyone else got off the hook. Everyone else said, oh, it's okay, you cheated, you affected the outcome of the game, but we're gonna not only are we not gonna suspend you, we're not gonna ban you, we're going to let you continue playing. So what happens when these guys retire? Are you going to tell me Jose Altuve is not going to be a Hall of Famer? Because I think as of right now, he's got the numbers to be. Are you going to look back and say he cheated and we're not going to let him in the Hall of Fame? I don't think anybody does. You know why? Because the MLB brushed it under the rug when it happened. And don't get me wrong, I think Jose Altuve, with or without cheating, is a Hall of Fame worthy player. So let's play a little game here. One of the bigger differences in these two cases is Pete Rose denied being a gambler for how many years. He didn't come clean right away. And you look at the Astros, and one of the reasons they supposedly aren't punished is because the players cooperated with the MLB and went out and explained everything to them. They cooperated. They said, we'll give you immunity if you go out there and tell us everything you did as far as cheating is concerned, right? So what did Pete Rose, instead of denying it for all these years, and let's get something clear, there's Astros players that still won't openly admit to it, whether you want to be frank, no matter how obvious it is or not. Nobody's come out really off that current roster and said, hey, we've cheated and this is how we did it. But when you look at Pete Rose, what happens to Pete Rose when he's, gambling, he's called out for it, and he just says, you know what, let me talk to you right now. If I talk to you right now, Commissioner, you're just going to let me off the hook? I'll tell you every single bet I've placed. I'll give you my books. I'll explain these bets, these bets, these bets, these bets. I'll do all of this if that means I get no punishment. Because that is exactly what's happening with the Astros right now. And if that's the only case for the MLB saying that's why Pete Rose shouldn't be reinstated, that's a very weak case. So regardless of whether you think or not Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame for what he did, it's really not. I want to hear the answer from the MLB here, because there's no counter argument that they can make, the MLB that can defend them saying Pete Rose does not deserve to be reinstated in the MLB. Because if you're going to let people that cheated in the game that affected the outcome of the biggest part of the season, the World Series, and you're not even going to slap them on the wrist, the team, but the players did not get touched, how can you possibly argue saying, oh, Pete Rose, a guy that gambled on the sport, there's zero proof of him ever gambling on the sport and affecting the outcome of games. How can you possibly go out and not let him back in the game? Meanwhile, you let these guys off the hook. Meanwhile, guys on steroids get 80 games or 60 games or 50 games, and they get to come right back into baseball. Actions that affect the outcome of the game, and it's proven to do so. But then when something that is, in the case of gambling, you're going to treat it differently. Pete's not wrong here. You can't go out there and treat his case different than every other player in baseball. And that's the way it feels right now. Whether it be steroids, whether it be the banging on the trash can, all these cases of getting treated so much more lightly than gambling on baseball. My question is, what's the difference? It remains to be a travesty that the all-time hit king is not even eligible to be in the Hall of Fame, as far as I'm concerned.